Hi everybody, this is Ela Jarvis and I'm going to show you how to paint flowers using wet and to wet technique. You can see I've got a couple of ones that I started earlier, and I'm going to just finish this up and maybe do a second layer on here just to show how glazing works. This painting exercise was inspired by this watercolor painting that my students saw, and we are not going to go into the great depth and detail of this picture. This took multiple layers. This wasn't just one quick pass. This was maybe at least 3 or 4 layers to get all that detail in there of both wet and wet technique, and also just doing little bits of intense color at the end and the shadows and so on. If this is something that you would like me to demonstrate, I think this would be something best saved for Patreon, because it would take me a while to demonstrate, and it would be a lot of work. So check out my Patreon page. It's available. You can check out the information below in the description below the video, and yeah, mention that you're interested in this in the comments. All right. So on to the painting. Doing flowers is not really that different from doing something like an apple, although I definitely had fun with all the places where I put the light and shadow, and this is much more concentrated and controlled. But we can still do this, we can still have fun. So wet and to wet technique, I'm just doing one petal at a time on this flower, and I even played with reversing where the lights and the darks were, just for fun, just to see how it goes. And I've already mixed my colors in advance. So this is a kind of a light orange mixture of this kind of reddish orange and I think this yellow right here. And I'm going to just, oops, got a little bit more orange in there. Just make a little bit more yellow. Let's see what that looks like. Always testing colors, that's good. And then I can test the second color just to be extra sure. I'm going to put a little light red into this darker red. Yes, those two colors are different enough. That will work. I could maybe even go more intense if I want to. All right, so got my light orange here, and I'm going to go do the inside of this petal. Sometimes people get confused on when is it appropriate to get everything wet with clear water and then put color on top. And my answer is only if you want a very pale result, because if you put that water down first, then that dark color is going to mix with that water and you're going to end up with something pale. It's going to be much paler than what maybe you originally anticipated. And watercolor always dries lighter than what you first get anyway. So if you want nice intense color like what I have here, don't start with a pale background. If I want to lighten this up, I can rinse out my brush and then dry it on paper towel, and I can pull some of that paint up. I can get my brush wet again and put a little bit of water back in there. So first I remove some paint and then I add some water. So this is all still evenly wet, but now we have a paler area, a more orange area, and now a darker area. If I want to try and get like those little lines like we have over here, let's see if I can do that. I'm gonna go in here. I'm running out of this color. And then I can go in with my darker color here. Oop, that's my lighter color too. Let's get some dark color on there. All right, this is a nice dark color. All right. As you can see, I'm working quickly. I'm using 100% cotton paper, and I can choose to bring in specific areas, right? So you've got these sort of soft lines like we have here. There's a little bit of playing around, not just having a smooth, even crescent of red, instead having some alterations and some very soft striping between the two. So that's kind of fun. That's not so hard. That's something that you can definitely do. I'm doing one petal at a time. I often do things like this, one petal at a time. I'll alternate between petals to get them all done. You could go ahead and, you know, if I wanted to do a whole flower, I'm just going to do a messy quick one. If I wanted to do a flower quickly, I could just color in one area and then color in a darker color on the outside and have it be wet into wet, and maybe do a drawing afterwards, you know, or, but I don't like how this looks as much. I like having control. I like being able to make things exactly the way I want, and that requires patience and layers. And then you can see how, you know, it's sort of cartoony if I do it all at once. Besides which, of course, I didn't draw it first. So that's one way to do it. Another way you can do it is, say, let's say in this one, my colors kind of faded more than I wanted them to. Or you do an underpainting. You paint the whole flower yellow, and now you want to add your gradation after the fact. I got that all wet with clear water, saturated, but you know, still shiny. It still can see the texture of the paper. And now here we go. That's wet into wet technique as well, but that was done in 2 layers instead of with 1 layer in this one. But that looks good, and this is going to dry probably closer to the color of those 2. So this is another way. If I want to keep going, I can, if I'm feeling impatient, but these colors are going to run together a little bit. Less controlled, but the orange parts are touching and the clear parts are touching. So you can try, you can see which technique you like better. It's always worth trying more than one way. There's never just one way. Now, if I put this over here, is the ink gonna keep it from moving over there? Oh, it looks like the water is moving in. The water from the left is moving into the petal on the right. So, always sort of interesting to see what happens. These 2 are still dry. If I wanted to put some shadows, let's see. I could add some shadows in there if I really wanted to. This is me just using Payne's gray, maybe not necessarily the most exciting color for a shadow. Maybe a little bit of blue would be nice in there too. So there's lots of room for interpretation, figuring out how you want your flowers to look. I hope you found this helpful, and try it out at home.